Oh shit, I was supposed to be making something. Hello, I'm Wix, and in this video I'll be covering everything a healer should know up to around level 30. I'm gonna treat this as a follow-up to the tanking fundamentals video, so if you're a new player, you might want to start there. As the name implies, the healer is primarily focused on keeping the group alive and well. Not by recommending a healthy lifestyle or surgery as is customary in real life, but through good old-fashioned occult voodoo witchcraft. Now, healing the group is fine and all, but that is just the bare minimum expected of you. If you're the kind of player that likes to constantly exceed expectations, you'll find that you can do a lot more than just heal in this role. But before we get to that, let's talk about gear. Healers are a bit less reliant on having good gear to do their job than tanks or DPS are. That does not mean you can enter Hockey Manor with a level 12 stick though. So keep your gear level reasonably close to the dungeons. Prioritize your weapon over armor and armor over accessories. You want to get as much weapon damage as you can, and after that prioritize gear with mind on it. You're not a thaumaturge, ignore the intelligence. Most importantly, don't forget to glamour or at least dye your gear. Knowing that their healer is good looking is a massive morale boost to any group. That's why you see so many of them wearing
nothing at all! Nothing at all! Nothing at all!
If this was a shelter, I would endure in a world with faceless strangers.
Lead walls look dumb, they said. Feels like a bunker, they said. Doesn't seem so kitschy after the second nuke, now does it? Where was I? Whatever, let's move on to the UI. A lot of your time will be spent staring at HP bars, so feel free to move it somewhere more convenient. You can also resize any UI element if you feel like realigning everything for a few hours. Something else you might find useful is the aggro line mechanic. Whenever you aggro an enemy or are targeted by certain boss abilities, a red arrow will appear pointing from the enemy to your character. It's a nice warning that some damage may be coming your way. Speaking of aggro, you should probably know how that works for healers too. For DPSers it's fairly simple, every point of damage equals 1 point of aggro, whereas healers generate half a point of aggro for every point of HP. Whenever you heal someone in combat, you generate aggro on every enemy in the fight. The total is then divided by number of enemies and equally distributed. So say you have a 5 enemy pool. A heal worth 100 HP in that situation would generate 50 points of aggro and be divided up for 10 points each. Using abilities like Swift Cast or entering Cleric Stance produce a flat 40 points of aggro. Sprint being an exception because seeing a guy in a dress sprint full speed around a battlefield is more amusing than threatening. Since you will be constantly gaining aggro on every enemy, less experienced tanks will inevitably lose aggro to you, in which case don't start running away from it, don't start massively overhealing yourself in panic, just calmly make your way over to the tank and let him do his thing. Now that you're suitably overinformed about aggro, let's take a look at your basic conjurer skill set. Cure is the main healing spell you will be using for the entire game due to its efficiency. Cure 2 is a more powerful version of Cure 1, but way less MP efficient. Double the cost, but not quite double the potency. You will need to throw caution to the wind and just spam the hell out of Cure 2 in certain high damage situations, but other than that, just stick with the basic one. Medica is your first AoE heal. Not as potent as Cure, but heals everyone at the same time. Usually you'll want to use this when there's 3 or more people taking damage. Esuna is one of the most important spells you have. Not only can it remove status effects like paralysis and heavy, but damage over time abilities like poison. Some cannot be removed, however, so as you progress through the game, make mental notes on which ones are worth removing. Also, even if a status effect could be removed in one fight, does not necessarily mean it can be removed in another. Hey, you spent years memorizing all sorts of trivial information in school, so you should be well prepared for this. Now, Protect quite simply increases your group's defenses. Lasts for 30 minutes or until death, whichever comes first. Apply it at the beginning of a dungeon and hope you won't need to reapply it before the run is done. Raise is your classic resurrect spell for dead group members. And I kinda hate this spell. First off, it doesn't bring them back as your loyal zombie servant. You can't use it in combat until you reach like level 28 or something. And the person you raise even gets a 15% reduction in stats every time you raise him. Now, fortunately, the debuff can only stack twice and disappears after a couple minutes. But have you tried doing anything in this game with a third of your stats gone? It's not very fun. Finally, it has a massive MP cost. So if your friend just took all of Bahamut's Undying Rage right to the face, you just might have to make some difficult decisions whether they're even worth rezzing. Last but not least, you have Repose. It puts your target to sleep for 30 seconds. This is a very situational spell, as any attack will wake up the target, so I would recommend not relying on it too much, especially since some enemies have complete immunity to it. Wait! I shall take care of this. Fully resisted, never mind. If the tank is AFK for a few minutes and you want to clear some trash while they're away, this spell becomes very helpful. Just mind the diminishing returns. If you reapply Rouse on the same target, the duration gets cut in half. And if you have to reapply it again, it gets cut in half again. Past the third cast, the target becomes completely immune for a while. A lot of status effects work this way. That's about all you really need for the healing part of the role, but if you feel like going above and beyond, you're gonna need all these too. Cleric Stance switches your healing and damage stats, as well as adds some passives to increase the effect, essentially making your heals suck, but buffing your damaging spells. Learning to stance dance in and out of damage mode will be vital if you want to get the most out of your class. Stone is the main damaging spell you will be spamming until Stone 2 becomes available, at which point you'll probably never use it again. Arrow is your main damage over time spell. It may look weak at first glance, but it has a total of 200 potency over its duration. Even better, it has no cast time, which means you can move while casting it and it gives you an opening for abilities without sacrificing global cooldown time. Lastly, you have Fluid Aura. You can use this in multiple ways. Having a decent potency and no cost, it is most definitely part of your damage rotation. The utility of it is also useful for positioning enemies. The knockback effect will also interrupt enemies if they are casting something, but only if they are not resistant to knockback, which most bosses are. Keep in mind that tanks and melee DPS will likely try to murder you if you start knocking enemies away from them, so make sure to only use this as the finishing ability. If you're fighting a boss and it's immune to knockback, feel free to use it on cooldown. As for your cross-class skills, there's only one thing that I would call mandatory, and that's Swift Cast from the Thaumaturge class, mostly because Raise takes several centuries to cast. Okay, so that's what you've got to work with. Now let's take a look at how this all actually works in a dungeon run. As always, start off with a pleasant hello, maybe even strike up a conversation with your group. After all, it's just some casual low-level dungeon run, why not make some friends? Sometimes you'll find assholes just wanting to clear the dungeon as fast as possible. And other times you'll find warm, caring people just wanting to share their excitement and their time with others in a world we all enjoy. Feeling awfully brave with my lag spikes.
What did you get something to do?
Of course you would, you bastard.
You'll share jokes and experiences that you'll cherish for a long time to come.
For those of you watching at home, do not use Blood for Blood as a tank, for fuck's sake. But in the end, they were from a different server, and you will never see them again. All that you had built up was for naught, as it always is. After all, we come into this world alone, and we will die alone. Man, I really need to go outside more before I write these. As I was saying, start off with casting Protect on the group, and follow the tank.
Oh, you can explain when tanks run away from Protect.
Yes. If you feel confident enough to DPS as a healer, make sure to use the first pull to gauge how well the tank holds aggro and how much damage he takes. It gets a bit more predictable in late game, but right now anything can happen because you just don't know how experienced your group is. If the tank seems fine, switch to cleric stance. It has a 5-second cooldown before you can turn it off again, so make sure the tank can reasonably survive long enough for you to heal him up again. Assuming the tank isn't wearing paper armor, this should be easy. Once in cleric stance, wait for the tank to get aggro on all the enemies, and start casting arrow on each one. After that, just spam whichever stone you have access to. During all this, you must keep track of the tank's health. Using focus target makes this somewhat easier. Also be careful when turning off cleric stance, as there is no cooldown for reusing it right after. If you start spamming it, you will just end up entering cleric stance again. Remember that you have to work with the tank's entire HP pool. Don't panic every time it drops to half. Instead, learn to predict how fast the HP bar depletes on each tank you come across, and learn which enemies have big bursts of damage. Predicting damage is the most important skill you will have to learn as a healer. A lot of the harder endgame content will require you to memorize when the big hits are coming and start your casts before they even hit. Having good reaction time will help as well. You can't really predict when a group member will make a mistake and get nearly one-shot by an AoE or something. And that's when you have to make some judgment calls. Who to prioritize first, how big a heal is required, how much time you have to heal them, etc. Well, you're kind of on your own there, or else this video will take several hours to cover every possible situation. Just keep calm and know the tools at your disposal. Everything will be fine. Worst case scenario, you'll have valuable experience for next time. What I can help you with is dodging. In AoE heavy fights, you may not have all that much time to heal and DPS and dodge all the fire being thrown your way. So for those situations, you're gonna have to abuse the game's latency compensation. When you move while casting, it usually cancels the spell. However, if you move just before it finishes, it will still complete the cast, giving you some much needed mobility even when chain casting. This may be somewhat dependent on your ping though, so you will have to find the threshold yourself. Alright, if you can master all these aspects of the healer role, you can virtually guarantee success, regardless of your group's skill level. You can make up for lazy DPS, you can keep a naked tank alive, and on some rare occasions, when the stars align and you get grouped up with veteran players, you'll find out just how much fun tearing through a dungeon can be in a speedrun. That should be about all you need to know for starters. Go check out my Patreon page if you want to fund more videos like this one, and I'll see you next time. Okay, now pretend like you're in a totally normal dungeon run and say I'm new and hello and all that nonsense. Oh my god, seriously? Seriously? How am I gonna fucking edit this out?
Hey, it's okay to do some harmless self-promoting in your own guide.
What the fuck point is that? They're already watching.
Whoever jotted it killed it.
Because we're supposed to be noobs now.
Oh my. Oh, that's dead.
Why?
Oh, stop. Stop. My god, man. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all over the room, so you can do it.
I can do it.
Do it.
I don't think you can do it.
That's the spirit.